In today's episode with Emma Coffman, we are talking about export beef demand and what that means for you as a producer here in the United States. I think so often people can talk about export demand and say it's important and all of these things, but you're like, how does that actually apply to me in my operation? Today, Emma and I are taking a 30,000 foot view and breaking all of that down for you back home here in the United States and what that means for you in your operation. Before we hop into today's episode, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you take a second to go subscribe to our channel and like this episode. If you're watching on any of our other podcast platforms, you guys know the drill at this point. Make sure you're following the show and go rate and review it as well. All of these things truly just help us continue to grow this podcast and make a greater impact within the beef industry. And without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into this episode with Emma. Emma, welcome back to the podcast. How was your Christmas? I know it was a little uneventful for you because I hear you were stuck in wonderful Lubbock, Texas, doing one of your million other jobs, but how was Christmas?
Yeah, no, Christmas was good. It was just, I was, like you said, working, but it was the hottest year on record for us. And I don't know if anybody else's Christmas was like that, but oh no, this week we decided to get the cold weather. But like last week, we were just channeling our Hawaiian Christmas vibes. I'm not sure what was going on, but it was good. How about you, Lauren?
It was wonderful. Time with family is always great, but I caught whatever Christmas crud is out there, and let me just tell you, I'm over it. I'm done. I'm sick of being sick. We got one virus in our household, got over it, and now we have a different one. And we are like, we're still functional, we're fine, but whatever head cold thing is going around right now, I'm over it. I'm ready to be done.
Maybe it's because you were living in Kansas. Maybe no kidding.
Yeah, blame it on that. Okay, Miss Lubbock, Texas, and it was like, what, 80-mile-an-hour straight line winds this weekend, and your allergies are now terrible? Yeah, okay.
I know. Look, pot calling kettle.
Exactly. Well, we are here today to talk about exports, so would you like to introduce our topic for us?
Yeah, so I think this is a big topic of conversation, especially right now during our low inventory numbers and the price of beef is already going up. And I see online a lot in the comment section talking about, well, we shouldn't be exporting or importing. We shouldn't be exporting anything. We should keep it all in-house. And then if we really need something, then we need to be sustainable. And it's only a last resort to import any kind of beef products in the United States. And I think that there's a lot of that's like an onion, right? Like there's a lot of layers to this topic, and it's not as black and white, cut and dry as maybe you might read in the comment section on the internet or even some people online. I've been seeing them make some pretty misinformed social media content about it. The fact of the matter is it is a relationship that's on a global spectrum. We do this with every single commodity, whether it is precious minerals, whether it's steel, and in this case, beef. So hopefully we can I don't think we're going to dive too deep into it because we would be here for a lot longer than what our time allows, but maybe just get a broad overview of why this relationship and market and how it works and why, and maybe hopefully clear up some things in the air. No pun intended.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that this whole topic of export demand, where we're exporting, why we import, and that just like symbiotic relationship that we have to kind of play there gets overlooked and misinformed constantly because people are like, well, why do we export? Like, why are we importing when we're exporting all of this beef? Why not just stop exporting it and then we can slow our imports? And in theory, you step back and you don't understand fully what's going on. That sounds like a great idea, right? But in practice, that's not how it works because what we export is all of our offcuts that other countries are going to pay a large premium for, that it is a delicacy in foreign countries to have different things like legs and soup bones and tongues and brain and all of that other stuff that we don't want that. We could use it in certain things, but why use it in dog food here when we can export it at a premium for a greater price to foreign countries that think of it as a delicacy? And then we've also got our ultra prime cuts that like we're seeing a really big uptake in specialty feeding right now, whether that be Wagyu crosses, different things like that that are going to get us that insane marbling that a lot of our foreign countries really sought after. And they look to the United States as kind of the gold standard of beef production. And we have created such a great reputation for ourselves of making a really great beef product that we simply, being point blank, as a United States population, don't eat enough of the really, really high quality beef products to validate keeping it all. And if we can have something that's an ultra, ultra prime and we put all this money and input into it, we're not going to grind it like that. We're not going to do that. And that's why we have to bring in imports and lean beef to provide for our ground market as well.
Yeah, and to your point, why would you waste selling maybe a ribeye for, and this is like a probably not the best cut example, but like you have Wagyu ribeye that you could sell for $100 a pound versus the demand's not there. So you grind it up to make $4 a pound ground beef. That makes 0 sense, economically wise. And like you said, there's, other countries, a lot of ethnic markets have different priorities in terms of what cuts they like to cook with. Like you mentioned earlier, tongue. Tongue is a very, like, high level delicacy in other countries. They slice it really, really thin. It is absolutely amazing. But name how many grocery stores at your neighborhood Walmart are gonna carry tongue. Very few. And even so, a lot of times you have designated ethnic markets, whether it's a grocery store chain or maybe an entire chain dedicated to ethnic markets, those might carry that for the different variety of people and cultures that we have here in the United States. But it's not a standard. When we think about barbecue at 4th of July, I doubt the first person is going without a cultural background from an overseas country is going to say, "Yeah, let's barbecue some beef tongue today. Get that baby barbecue sauce, baby ribs over here. Like we'll just put it out on the spread." So we got to think about that when we're talking about exports. It's not just whole muscle cuts. There are a lot of offcuts that go into it as well. There's a lot of export statistics out there. The U.S. Meat Export Federation is a really good resource. They have up to date, very easy to understand analysis. They break it up into all of beef and then they'll do it muscle cuts and then kind of like your other cuts. So if you want to learn more about the numbers and the percentage changes of last year versus this year, that's a really good resource, not just for beef, but pork, lamb as well. I don't think they do chicken. I think it's just red meat items. So that would be one of my first little propositions if you want to dive more into that topic. But we're looking at the countries across the world that you said, look at us as the gold standard. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, you're not as good as the EU, blah, blah, blah. I disagree. I've been there. I've seen the groceries. I've seen the quality of meat. I would put money on the US beef every single day, night and day. And in fact, those other countries in the European space still buy our product at a premium. I think I looked at a flat iron, if I remember correctly, and it was 28% higher in price over there versus here in the United States. And that's at what was it? It's not sterling. What's the other one? Euro. That was euro versus dollar. I didn't even do the comparison, and the euro is worth more than the dollar right now. So it's probably closer to 30 something percent, really. And so when we're looking at an export import market, I think it's kind of funny, actually, about this topic and this time and this climate of our low beef cattle numbers, because what's the number one thing that you've been seeing in terms of the cattle industry and the consumer space the last, 5, 6 months? Beef prices. Okay. So if you're talking about domestically grown product, it does not mean that it is going to be a cheaper product. And we import a lot of lean cuts in order to utilize the carcasses that we have here in the United States to its max capacity. The amount of waste that we would have just because people don't cook with tallow anymore. People don't use the fat as they did 40, 50 years ago. So in order to keep that commodity price as low as we can, we fill the gaps. And that product is still inspected. It's still safe for you to eat. But I think it's just really kind of, you want your cake and eat it too. And you're like, oh, we should stop importing and we should eat everything that we grow. I'm like, well, then fine. You're going to have to learn how to cook beef cheek. I mean, if that's, and I think our population too is, they don't experiment with different cuts. They stay within their realm of comfort And I get it. Sometimes getting and bleeding outside the lines can be a little intimidating, but there's a lot of really good cuts of beef out there that you're not trying because you A, don't know how to cook it, B, you've never had it before, so you don't know really what to expect from it. And C, sometimes they just flat out don't want to try it. How many cowboys out there are digging on the sushi, you know? So like, I don't know, that's that fish stuff. But you put tongue in front of them, they may or may not try it, depending on the kind of person and what background they were raised in. So, like you said, the export market, it's a dance. It is a delicate dance. Right now, we actually saw a flip of our top three when it comes to export countries. We swapped Mexico for China. Mexico surpassed China for the first time in a long time when it comes to our beef exports. Now, that's no is September's numbers. They have not released anything past that. So maybe at the end of the year, it'll be really interesting to see what those numbers look like. But Korea, China, Mexico, those are kind of our top three. And then the Japan has been number one for a long time as well. So we're looking at other countries that have a really high percentage of wealthy people that are willing to spend that top dollar on our top ultra prime cuts. And if we can bring that money and fuel it into our market, then absolutely. Kind of a really bad analogy to use, but we look at the horse meat market. We stopped horse meat production here in the United States, even though Mexico is willing to pay a lot of money for that meat product. And same thing with other Asian countries. There was a lot of just ethics, I think, arguments behind that. But I'm a fan of, hey, I'd rather utilize that animal than it waste out in our federal lands and public lands. So I know it's kind of a little bit of a different perspective than what we're talking about right now, but it's the same concept. Don't let stuff go to waste. And I don't think a lot of people in the United States are going to be willing to eat horse meat. So maybe I'm wrong. It's actually really good for those who haven't tried horse. It's very good. But yeah, it's just reminding ourselves that it's not as simple and as black and white as it may seem.
Yeah, absolutely. You make so many good points. And this could be a whole different topic in and of itself, but I also agree. I mean, all of our horses are getting sold and getting put on trucks to Mexico anyway, and they're just getting slaughtered down there. So we might as well do it here in the United States. But that is a whole different topic for a whole nother time. Don't even get me started on one of those high horses, no pun intended. But as far as just like everything else goes with our export demand, you made so many great points. And I think it is important for the US cattlemen to understand why we need to do this and why we do that dance of imports and exports and why it makes sense for our economy, why it makes sense for the commodity of beef and continuing to be able to keep it a highly sought after product in foreign markets. And I mean, you just look at the logistics of it and you're like, okay, well, why doesn't Korea just have their own beef and they do it themselves? Well, they don't have the landmass for it. They don't have the landmass. They don't have the people. They don't have the infrastructure for it. And so they look at us in the United States and they say, hey, you guys can create this at a really high level, a really great product, and at the demand that we need. So, hey, let's do some business here. And I think it's really important, going back to what I just said, that the US producer understands that because that plays a role in our US economy. We need to look at the world economy, and that world economy does affect our commodity prices here in the United States. And it inevitably affects what you're bringing home to your family on your operation that is 500, 1,000, or five in your backyard. It is affecting you because the world market does affect everything
Yeah,
that we do.
absolutely. Well, we got to also remind ourselves that we're the most efficient beef producing country in the entire world as well. And that comes with genetics, that comes with nutrition. And it also comes with the resources that we have here in the United States, like China. The reason they have to import is exactly to your point about Korea. China does not have the infrastructure and resources, which is why stop covering our pasture land in concrete. Stop it. Take that abandoned building in your downtown area, revamp it into an apartment complex, whatever. But we talk about the spread of urbanization, which I'm kind of going off track here, but when we talk about the expansion of urbanization, we are reducing our natural resources in order to produce the amount of food that we have historically. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. So, and we look at other countries, I do not want to become a country like China that we are dependent upon other places and other countries and other governments. So, yes, I think we all would love to be completely self-sufficient. However, we also are governing ourselves very differently than other countries, very differently than other nations, and our resources are all different. You know, our rainfall in Oregon is vastly different than the Panhandle, which is vastly different than Florida, which is vastly different than California. California grows very specific products that only California thrives in because of the climate, the soil, the temperature, and the rainfall, and the humidity, and the elevation, and then the way they get tropical storms, and the way that weather patterns move. These are all things that you cannot man make. We can man make housing, and you can put it in places that do not take away from our natural resources. So there's my PSA. That's my soapbox. But like to your point, we are very efficient in our beef production system. I mean, we're king. Without a doubt, no pun intended, I guess to UK, but when it comes to beef, we are top dog. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our producers for that, and we just need to keep on that roll. But just reminding ourselves that um there's a reason that our market works the way it works. We get other trade deals because of this, and it really does strengthen our market and our dollar value for producers. You know, you're talking about earlier grounding up a ribeye, a wagyu, selling it for $100 a pound versus $5 a pound. We know we're talking about producers making money. That's a real great way for you not to make any money, is to devalue your product because of your market share is now in a different climate. So just let's keep that in the back of our minds. If China, if Japan, if Korea, Mexico, they're willing to pay those top dollars, then yeah, I'll give you the check. You just sign your name on the dotted line, my guy.
Absolutely. You made so many great points today, Emma, and this was just a really great discussion. Again, that 30,000-foot view of, hey, this is why you need to care as a producer. This is why it impacts you on your operation. We didn't get into all the nitty-gritty numbers or anything like that, and we would be here for hours if we did that, frankly. But like Emma said, there are so many great resources out there. USMEF, they have a really great resource on keeping it up to date on what our export numbers are looking like in the cattle industry, the lamb industry, and the pork industry as well, and kind of how that looks on just a world standard in the world market and how that's affecting our producers back home. Emma, thank you for your time today. To all of our listeners, we will see you all next time on another episode of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. If you want to follow along on Emma's journey, her advocacy, anything like that, make sure you check out the show notes down below. I have all of her links down below where you can check all of that out. And we will see you all next time. Have a good one, y'all.